my name is Voya, welcome to My Deep Guide, and yep, we are finally taking a first look or first impressions of the Boox Go 10.3 Gen 2, this time the non-front lid version. For all intents and purposes, this is the absolutely identical device like the Gen 2 but the Lumi version, except that this one is classic or whatever they want to call it, without the front light. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you basically have the same 300 ppi screen as on the Lumi version. We have the same advanced octa-core CPU. We do not have the front light. We have dual speakers, which are here on the bottom. We have the, of course, USB-C. We have the microphones. You have auto rotation. You have 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of storage, non-expandable, as there is no SD card slot anywhere to be found. We have the same 3700 milliamp battery, but you are expected to get a little bit better from it simply because you don't have that front light. But then again, you don't have the front light, so We also no longer have the EMR pen. We have the new Boox Ink Sense Plus pen, which, even though it is a USI active pen, as we've seen on the Lumi version, it translates pretty much identically to the non-Lumi version as well, which means that despite it not really being the most comfortable pen around, as it's full-on metal and it's kind of this not really comfortable or overly comfortable oval shape when it's something that's metal, then yeah, your hand gets quite a bit tiring. But it's still a pen that actually works rather well, or the best writing resulting feeling active pen that Boox has thus far released. However, no EMR. It supports the same Boox magnetic case as before, has Android 15, has built-in Google Play Store. It's around 4.8 millimeters thickness, which is kind of interesting that it's not thinner than the Lumi version, but I guess that makes sense because why would they actually go through the extra expense of building a different housing for two different versions? So I get that point completely. However, because it's using a different type of screen with a different type of stack, it is a little bit lighter than the Lumi. Lumi version was 364 grams. This is at 350 grams. And the best thing of all is it costs $399 US with the whole package. Well, that's pretty good. Design and build quality wise, I'm not going to repeat myself too much because it's pretty much the identical housing as the Lumi. So the same good improvements over the original Gen 1 version are present on this one as well. It lost the logo here. The only meaningful difference between the Lumi and the non-Lumi version is the fact that the metal housing on the side here is darker, and the pen that you get with the non-Lumi version also has that same darker type of a tint on the side. The Lumi version is a little bit lighter, kind of a metal. So that's the only difference. Other than that, if you just look at them on the outside, they're pretty much exactly the same, which is not a bad thing because, yeah, Go 10.3 design was always a very nice one, and the Gen 2 simply improved upon the imperfections of the Gen 1. However, something that's most immediately noticeable for those who have used e-ink devices before is the surface to screen distance. On this version, you clearly and immediately see that the contact and the immersion with the content on the screen is going to be much, much better on this version than on the Lumi, which makes sense. I have already updated this device to the latest version of the Boox OS 4.2, and it has had a couple of iterations, so some bug fixes and things like that. So this is running the latest version. And I have to say that it's working rather well for the most part, but it's something that you can immediately see that I'm trying to kind of show you right now. There we go. Even when you just fire up the device, like the Lumi version, on the non-Lumi version, you will immediately see that there is problem, and that is the problem of the ghosting. So as you can see, as soon as you actually just do any kind of action and you go here, there's quite a lot of ghosting going on. And it's the same level of ghosting that we've seen, or similar level of ghosting that we've seen on the Go 10.3 Gen 1. And that further solidifies the story, or the guessing, that this is actually using the exact same screen, Carta 1200, as the original Go 10.3 Gen 1, which is now quite old. Boox is not really super clear on that, and there's been conflicting information. Is it Carta HD? Is it Carta 1200? But either way, from all of the sources that I could actually find, I can't find any indication that the Gen 2 versions of the Go 10.3 Lumi, or this one, the Classic, are using a different type of a screen than the original Gen 1. And yeah, as soon as you start kind of doing this kind of stuff, you can actually see that you're going to expect the same or very similar type of performance, good and the bad. Overall navigation is actually quite good, and the device is performing as I would expect it to. So now we are in the HD mode, but you can switch to speed mode, which considerably speeds things up. And interestingly, when you are in the speed mode, the deghosting algorithm that they're using, because again, apparently I think that this and the Lumi, like none of the Go 10.3s, I've mistakenly said before that they are using their BSR technology. They are supposedly not, and they're actually just using a software side of refreshing. So the speed mode is giving you a lot more interactivity with the device. So you have that every X amount of actions, it will do a full refresh. And at the same time, it's giving you a cleaner image. So what's the catch? Why would we have an HD mode then? Well, the catch is that in speed mode, the content is paler and the resolution is lower. So if you want the best amount of details, you will be switching over to HD, and it will give you the full 300 ppi resolution at the expense of speed and ghosting. But you can always map the ghosting or full refresh to a swipe, and then it works. However, that's just a compromise solution for a shortcoming that the device has. Or if you don't really care about the best image quality that the device can actually offer, then you switch to speed, and then you get speed and better deghosting performance. Right, switching back to HD mode, and now let's just open up a couple of documents and test the image quality, what we can expect to see from the Go 10.3 Classic non-Lumi version. Where's my Nord modular? There it is. So opening it up for the very first time on this device, and there we go. Okay, so normal type of speed. I've adjusted the positioning. I've lifted the device just a little bit here, like a finger worth of height, to avoid the glare here, so that you can get the best impression of what to expect. So this is the performance of the HD refresh mode and standard document that I'm going through, and I can see that even at really small rendering of the fonts, it's really crisp, really sharp. Even when it's in italics, the lines are perfectly legible. And as usual, yeah, the Go 10.3 had a really good image quality. The Lumi version also had really good image quality, and this one follows on that line. I will see in the in-depth review, when I do the DAF analysis of both the Lumi and this version as well, think that I'm seeing, and what I think that the trend is that the devices that do not have a front light should have better, marginally or meaningfully actually better readability, clarity, sharpness, and even contrast, simply because you have less of a distance between the light going through the front panel screen and actually hitting the electrophoretic cells. Once you increase that, it's going to be a little bit darker, and you're going to have parallaxing, and when you have less of that distance, then you're going to have all of those benefits that I mentioned. So with that in mind, yeah, I really do like the image quality here. The refresh method is actually quite nice and gentle. Not all devices do that. It's not really super fast in HD mode here, definitely not. But what I'm reacting to is how soft and gentle the refresh method is. Quite a lot of devices will do a lot of blinking or will be kind of violent in a sense, especially when switching from images here to images there. That tends to get very, very blinky, and to some extent, of course, it's blinky here because it's going to fully white and then, you know, populating there. But overall, it's like a very nice, pleasant type of a refresh method with a good image quality. And although the ghosting is absolutely present, you can see it kind of accumulating here, we do always have the option of refreshing. However, you shouldn't have to do that. It should be the device that's able to handle this in a better way. So now let's switch to the speed mode, and we can immediately see image degradation here. So now the really thin content here is a little bit less good, but we do have significant improvement in flipping speed, making this a lot faster. Now, while there is an image degradation, you can see here, that's not necessarily the end of the world, because you do have a lot of options to kind of help things along. So you can bolden the text, you can do text enhancement as well. But I do warn you to be kind of cautious with these, because while they can help, more you introduce of these additives, so to speak, worse the image quality will be, and it will have a negative impact on the readability as well. So now let's zoom in so that you can see in up close what the image quality is like. We are in HD mode. We can see that how it handles curves, how it handles very, very small fonts here with the italics. And now I want to just switch to speed mode so that you can see what type of degradation we're talking about. It's nothing catastrophic, but it is there, and it's especially meaningful on a document like this one that has a very, very tiny and thin type of fonts. Then you really want to have like the best possible readability, and for me, the HD mode just works fine. Yes, it's slower than the speed mode, absolutely it is, but I just kind of like it because of that soft refresh quality. Maybe it's just me, but it's a very nice and pleasant type of sensation. And for me, even though the ghosting is absolutely there, you can see that when you're dealing with just text, the device is able to do it kind of nicely. So we're going from text here down to here, and it's a very nice clean page. It's just that when we're having icons and super strong contrast, then you can expect to have some of the ghosting issues, as we're starting to have a little bit here. There we go. Now it's starting to get a little bit darker, and when we refresh, it suddenly becomes a little bit brighter. So ghosting is a thing, but for me, it's not really a deal breaker, mainly because you can always do the full refresh and then it works. Now let's check out the graphics rich document and see how it handles. So this is a page in that graphics rich document with text, with different types of fonts and different types of grays. And we can see that it's handling it in a really, really nice way. All of the grayscale is very nicely differentiated, and it's managing to kind of get the color grayscale interpretation in a good way, because these are different colors, not just grayscale in the original document. And then we start to go here, and we absolutely have ghosting issues bonanza. I mean, you can clearly see, like, I can read it: throw off the bowlines, sail away from the harbor, catch the trade. That's not good. And you can even have here. So let's see how long it will take. There we go. Now it's starting to kind of clean it up. There we go. It's getting to be cleaned up. And again, here it has that very smooth type of refresh, even when we're talking about the entire page refresh. But the ghosting is a thing. Like, wherever it encounters even a mildly more difficult high contrasting situation, it's simply not able to clean it up properly. Let's see if it is able to do it if we switch to deep level and full refresh rate on every single flip. No. This is something that I find really bizarre and puzzling. on the Boox platform, because now that I've switched to deep refresh mode, you can see that we have that blinky refresh mode that I talked about, that I find unpleasant. For me, this is an unpleasant way of refreshing, and we have Everglades back. There we go, Everglades. All right. However, if I switch to normal and switch to 1, this is this nicer level of refresh. And now, nah, I thought that it was a little bit better. No, it's the same. So we still have the same type of problem here. And the issue that I have is that whether I switch to full refresh rate to 1 or never, it makes zero difference to the performance of NeoReader. What does full refresh mean? Well, full refresh should actually be this command, which again is not able to fully clean up the ghosting issue. So let's see, Everglades, 1, 2, 3. Okay, after 3 full refresh cycles, I'm able to kind of clear out the remnants. This is not good. This is something that absolutely should be addressed, and it should be kind of kept in mind if you are looking for this device to handle graphics-rich content. All right, so now let's go back to the same problematic issue here and problematic few pages. And now let's switch to speed mode, and let's see if the algorithm that they're using works. Yes, it does. It's a little random. It's kind of trying to see like, okay, there we go. So it does clean things up, but you can clearly see that there's like a lot of image degradation here. And while it absolutely helps with the de-ghosting issues, for me personally, if I was looking at graphics-rich content, the image degradation is simply too severe. And this turns it into a very ugly-looking image. You can see how dirty it is all over the place. Every gradient becomes completely dirty, not just color banding, but this very pixelated, not nice kind of a quality. Whereas we switch to Regal, and it's absolutely gorgeous, like properly beautiful, except that we have the ghosting thing. So yeah, that's basically how this device handles this. Very nice refresh method, very nice image quality overall, but ghosting issues absolutely present. Writing with the new pen on the Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-Lumi version. As I've written here, it's largely the same type of writing experience as on the Lumi version. What does that mean? Well, that means that it's actually quite good for an USI or active pen. Out of all Boox's forays into using an active pen, these two devices have absolutely the best writing feel. Not performance, maybe in latency, but the overall experience is the best. We have quite nice level of friction between the nib and the screen, so that's very pleasant. We have decent enough level of precision, but there's quite a bit of optimization here going on. And my problem with the active pen is that it needs to interpret what I'm writing. And on the Boox Go 10.3 Gen 1, which used an EMR pen and a Wacom layer underneath for that, it didn't used to do that much optimization and that much interpretation. This is more in line with basically what Remarkable 2 was doing as far as accuracy goes. So at a first glance, you're gonna say like, oh, this is great, this feels awesome, because it feels good, and because your expectations are USI pens, active pens, oh my god, it's gonna be horrible, and then you start writing and it's not horrible, and actually there's pleasant things about it, and good, genuinely good things about it, and then you go like, oh my god, this is the best. My impression is not really that, as I've been kind of trying it out now. And it's a twofold thing. First one, as I already mentioned in the beginning, my problem with this pen is as I'm writing, it's kind of leaning against this part and it's very hard and the edges are not that smooth. So this part of my finger starts to hurt and I do get an increased arm fatigue because of the pen design, pen hardness and everything else. The second part that I do have a problem with is the precision. Precision is not there. Like you see these S's are simply losing the finesse that was there. And I have yet to see an active pen that is not suffering from these issues. So this is why I continually say for an active pen, this is a great writing experience, but it doesn't really match an EMR type of a writing experience. And then on top of that, you have to add the fact that this pen doesn't really charge from the device, and you have to maintain the awareness and the scheduling and everything. You have to make sure that this pen is charged. Otherwise, when it runs out, it won't work and you can't do anything about it. And the final thing is active pens, depending on how it's actually implemented, but they have a tendency to drift as far as accuracy and precision goes. The calibration can drift. And the way that that's actually done is that the driver itself is supposed to auto-update and auto-calibrate each time you use it, and voila, you don't have to think about it and it just works. When it works, it's great. But that's not really what I've been experiencing on this device. And it's... There we go. Did you see that? It's not... This is a consistent type of experience that I've been getting. Like these little curves, I'm drawing like a straight line as I can, and I'm getting very, very curvy kind of things going on here. And these are not small deviations. You can actually see that they're quite large. And we're talking about this type of deviation of precision away from your tip. When you start writing and if you write in like really small fonts, that precision is gone, like completely gone. And you cannot recalibrate it like you could on an EMR. There's that aspect. So does it work? Yes, it does. Does it have all of these different pens and brushes because it's a 4.2? Yes, it does. And it's actually quite nice. Some of them are nice. The one that I do like is in the fountain pen, you have like 3 different ones. You have a pen, which is, you also have pressure sensitivity now, so you can adjust it. You have stroke stabilization. Okay, I think that's one of the issues there. So yes, OS 4.2 is giving you all of this control, but now it's users' responsibility to figure out and fine-tune and calibrate your brushes? Really? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that the option is there, but the defaults, as everything else on Boox devices, the defaults are not properly calibrated, they're not that good, and what's the point of actually doing this when the next update is gonna probably ruin all of your carefully calibrated settings because they're gonna change it? Like, that's the part about the Boox platform. It never ends. Never ever ends. It always changes. Yes, some things are good, but at some point, like, come on, just do a proper thing. So let's do here. This is the ink pen, which has some pressure sensitivity, but yeah, you can adjust it, I guess. So let's adjust it to 100% and see how that works. Well, it's there. It's very, very kind of soft type of a thing. So now let's go to the calligraphy pen. So I feel like I need to press like really hard to get this to work, and you don't have pressure stabilization. Here you have pressure sensitivity. Here you only have stroke stabilization and pressure and line width. So if we go to wider, do you hear how much it clacks? There's this clacking sound. I don't like the in the pen itself. Maybe the nib needs to kind of wear in, but I've been using it a little bit and it just keeps clacking, and that vibration goes through the pen. It doesn't really feel nice. And if you haven't remembered like what's the default, you don't have a simple way to reset, like a reset icon here, and then you just reset it back to default. I don't know where it was. Maybe this line here, maybe it was there, but I have no way of knowing. The one that I do like is the fountain pen, which works rather nicely. But you get that now on the Go 10.3 Gen 1 because it has already been updated to 4.2 as well. So you get the same brush, but the EMR pen as well. Other brushes, we have the highlighters. So we can just go here. No, I'm trying to switch to a highlighter. There we go. So we have a highlighter that, works in a standard way, so you can't really blend it. It's cumulative. That's how the monochromatic screens work, so nothing to do about that. We do have the graphite pen, which has two different textures, and yes, it's angle and pressure. Well, pressure sensitive, not that much, just angle. And I'm trying to get to the whole thing. So there we go. No pressure sensitivity control there whatsoever. And this is the other texture, which I prefer from the first one. But then it does this. See how you can kind of draw it and it's nice. It makes it ugly. Great. The thing about this pen is that it would have been nice to be able to layer it up, but you can't. It just doesn't do it properly. The only thing that you can do that's kind of interesting is switching between one texture and another and laying that on top, because they are different textures, and then you get a little bit of a different impressions here. But overall, yeah, I don't know. This is not my favorite graphite type of experience, and this pen doesn't really lend itself well for something like that. We do have a ballpoint pen as well, which works well, and the contrast, the really good contrast of the screen here really does help, because it makes it pop. You don't have the pressure sensitivity issues because it's not a pressure sensitive pen and all that brush and all that kind of stuff. So that one works very, very nicely, but again, you suffer from that precision issues. And we do have the brush pen itself, which is, yes, very, very well. Yeah, So here's the pressure sensitivities issues in action. So as I was drawing here, I had super thin thing that now disappeared after the stroke optimization. And now when I start doing the thin stuff, it can be there, but then it disappears because of the optimization thing. And can I adjust the optimization here? No. It's that's what it is. So let's see if we can increase it to 2, and can we get a wide range of sensitivity? That's like one big improvement of USI pens. It's really inconsistent, and the thinnest stuff that you actually are able to get gets completely wiped off with the post-stroke optimization. The post-stroke optimization is really nice. That's why it makes it look very pretty, but you will lose some of the details. And while I absolutely love this detail here, like an ink drop in the end, that's a pure accident. It doesn't really happen that often, unfortunately, when you're using it. So, and as you can kind of clearly see, the interactivity with the toolbar here is not that great. And while I will make a separate video for OS 4.2, and just a general thing, the OS 4.2 has brought a lot of fixes to the atrocities of 4.1. But there is one thing that they've introduced in 4.2, and that is when you fire up the notebook, it will be like this by default. And the only thing that you can do is you can hide everything or do it like this. So the first challenge is, how do you even get the toolbar mode? It used to be a dedicated icon that you just tap it and you go into the toolbar mode. That's no longer the case. Now what you need to do if you want to get into toolbar mode is you gotta press and hold, and then you gotta press and hold and slide, but if you have a gesture then it's gonna be like that. So you have to press and hold to the side. Well, you can see how intuitive this is. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to detach. There we go. There we go. So you press and hold, the icon appears, and then you move it on the side, and now you can move the thing. So now I can dock it on the side. Hooray, Pac-Man is gone. However, that's the first obstacle. Like, instead of having an icon to just do, now you have to do this just to get into the toolbar mode, but that's not where the calamity ends. I've spent so much time, I thought that I had genuine cognitive issues with memory, that I cannot remember how to hide the toolbar, but it's just a change that they've introduced. You can no longer hide the toolbar. What you can do is you can collapse it to a small one, like this, right? But you can no longer hide it and unhide it. Yay, Boox. All right, so yeah, the Boox Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-front lit version. What are the first impressions? Well, some things are better, I think. I will know more when I do actually the in-depth review and the DAF analysis and comparison, where I'm going to compare the Gen 1, Gen 2, Lumi, and this version against each other to actually see the measurable things and what the objective state of things is. But subjectively, it looks to me, because I do use my Go 10.3 Gen 1 quite often, this looks a little bit sharper, cleaner, tighter type of an image quality, to me at least. Now, I don't know if that's genuinely the device itself, the screen and everything else, or are those some optimizations or image rendering optimizations that were introduced with the 4.2 OS. The problem with that is that my measurements for DAF are on OS 4 for the Gen 1, not 4.2. But I will at some point rerun the tests and update the DAF for that, but that's not going to be for the review, that's going to be later on. So we'll see how they compare. But the first impression is that this seems to be a very marginal update and maybe some improvements when compared with the Go 10.3. What I do like is less weight. I absolutely feel that. It feels those 350 grams, that's something that feels quite nice in a device like this. I do like the build quality as I liked it before, and I do like the image quality, sans the ghosting, but the ghosting maybe a smidge better than the Go 10.3 Gen 1. Again, we'll see. Those are just my first impressions. The elephant in the room, for me at least, is if we're comparing this, we're comparing it to the Gen 1 one-to-one comparison. And this has to be better on all accounts. And it's not. Why? Because of this. Is this a bad and unusable active pen? Absolutely not. It feels good. You can use it. It's not really the most comfortable one, but it does work. The problem is it doesn't work as good as the ones that you could use on the Gen 1 or the one that you actually got by default on the Gen 1. And the precision and inconsistencies in the drift and the lack of calibration, that's my biggest issue, because I've had none of those issues with the Gen 1. Here and on the Lumi, they were ever present. And that's simply the reality of switching over to USI type of technology. It all depends 100% on how the software implementation is like. And when you're in Boox's hands, as we've seen, with one hand Boox giveth and with the other it taketh away. So you never know what you're going to actually have. At least with EMR it was out of their hands and you could just do calibrate and that's it, and it just works or it doesn't. Here it's a very different situation, and with a company and a track record like Boox's with the software development, that's a bit of a scary proposition for me, at least if you are into a lot of writing. Now, that being said, on its own, if we exclude Go 10.3 Gen 1 because it has an older OS and we're talking like, okay, this is Android 15 and all of that kind of stuff, yada yada yada, could I recommend this for those who are interested? Yes, I think that it is actually a good device with those caveats that I have mentioned. So the primary ones being ghosting, the precision drift with the pen itself, and the fact that you are relying on Boox's software and support and all that kind of stuff, which is a big uncertainty, as we keep seeing from OS 4 to 4.1 to 4.2. It's a gamble. You absolutely never know what you're going to get, and if it's going to be an improvement, regression, or a combination of both, as 4.2 actually is. The device itself, I think it's good, but is it good enough to tempt somebody who already owns Go 10.3 Gen 1 to switch over to it? I am one of the users, and I know that I'm not tempted. What about you? That's it for the first impressions for this Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-Lumi version Boox device. Tell me what you think and what your impressions are in the descriptions down below. Which of these issues matter to you and which don't. And shortly after this, you're gonna be having an in-depth review where I'm gonna be combining and taking a look at the Lumi and the non-Lumi version, and then we'll see objectively how do they compare to the Gen 1 predecessor. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!